Right. Well, welcome everybody to our second Moses in Her Boots Resilience Bootcamp webinar of this summer. My name is Lisa Kivrist. I work with Moses on this wonderful project and have a farm here in southern Wisconsin. And we are live, so folks will be popping in. I will be your cruise director facilitator here. So I have a couple quick short announcements, but we would love to use the chat a lot as we move along to share with each other. Let me know anything, questions for Denise, or if you're having any tech issues. I'm assuming everybody can kind of hear all right now, but just let that roll and we'll be good to go. Excellent. Well, thanks again, everybody, for sharing your part of your afternoon with us. Thank you to Gemplers, who helped sponsor these events here for Moses to get the word out in the virtual world. A couple quick Zoom tips, although in the virtual world we're getting better at this, I am. But a couple things in the participant tab that's up on the right side where you see everybody's pictures. You can rename yourself. So if your name is not popping up, if you're calling in, you can do that where you live. And also too, in that same section there in the speaker view at the screen top, you can select different ways to view. And it's best if you can, it's called active speaker video. Then you'll see Denise when she's talking, and you won't necessarily see all other 40, 50 plus people unless you want to, but that sometimes is easier. And as I was just saying, let's use the chat function. And right now, please start introducing yourself, where you live, and ask questions. The one thing that we can't do because we're not in person as we normally on for our summer workshops is that sharing of information, things you need, other resources. Please, any topic goes, shout it out there, and we can hopefully connect you. So I will send these out in the post-webinar email, but for folks not familiar with Moses, lots of resources, lots of things happening, and especially right now, lots of things online. So all of the field days, again, normally in the summer, are now at your disposal online to see, or listen, watch, and our In Her Boots project, a number of other components of that as well, including our weekly podcast. We'll be continuing this Resilience Bootcamp idea for the next 2 weeks through August. And again, I'll send you those links. And a warm welcome to Denise O'Brien for sharing her afternoon with us via Iowa. Many folks already know of Denise. She is a true pioneer for us women in the organic sphere, a hardcore pioneer organic farmer herself, but as you'll hear in her story, she takes it further, and she takes it further in amplifying the message, amplifying the leadership, the things that we all need to do collectively as women to take our agriculture mission forward. And one thing that Denise does so incredibly, and a lesson I've taken, is she shares that with other women. And it's not, it's taking other women along through her work with Women Food and Ag Network and inspiring us to all think a little bit out of our box on what might be some next steps. So on that note, Denise, thank you. And I will turn things over to you, and I will again monitor here, so please pop into the chat other things and questions, and take it away, Denise.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. I'm thrilled to see who I see. Some names I recognize, a lot of names I don't recognize, but yeah, so I'm Denise O'Brien. I'm in my farmhouse in southwest Iowa near the Omaha, Nebraska. I'm in the Missouri River watershed, and I'm sitting in my front room. And this is the second time I've done one of these, a presentation type of thing. So it's like I put my earrings on, but you know what? From here down, I've got my work clothes on because I've been out weeding this morning and thinking what I'd like to talk to you all about and share, because as Lisa said, we want to have the in the chat, you can share some of your ideas about resilience and things. And so my farm is called Rolling Acres Farm, and we're in we live in the house that my husband grew up in. But we're also at this time building a straw bale house right across the yard for us to have, as our children are going to be moving in here in a couple of years. So our family of 6. So We're in the process. I'm in the process actually of we're having a workshop here in 3 weeks, and so we're getting ready to have that happen. Besides what we're doing on the farm, I've made a transition this year. I'm not doing a CSA. I am a community supported agriculture farm. I've been one since in the 1998, I think, or 90. So when I was doing it. But anyway, I've transitioned out of that, and this year my greenhouse is we're doing bedding plants for gardens, and so I'm doing that, and I'm doing the local market in town, in my local town of Atlantic, Iowa. So with that, we can start talking about things that I've thought about. So I'm a 70-year-old woman, and I was thinking today about that, and not that I think about it often, but I'm not, so I can't say that I'm a middle-aged woman. I'm more than middle-aged, because if you live to 100, you're 50 is middle-aged, so, you know, so anyway, I'm an older woman, or I'm an elder. I like to think about elder as an elder. And my life, that I'm a privileged white rural woman. It's been a struggle, there's no doubt. I grew up with a pretty tyrant father and things. That my life hasn't always been easy, but I'm privileged. I have land, I have a spouse, I have a partner who's just we've been married for almost 45 years, and we've learned a lot from each other. And this is, and my resiliency, as I was thinking, why am I resilient, or how can I be resilient? It's because I take cues from Mother Earth. I think it's, I was just thinking about that this morning as I was weeding. It's like, you know, we're in a drought right now, and we just had the derecho go through Iowa. We were at the southern end of it, but I was at a friend's farm the other day who was in smack dab in the middle of it and lost 2 of her hoop houses, and just smashed to smithereens. So and yet she too is a privileged white woman. She has land, she has the ability to recover from this, no matter how hard it might be. And when we think of what's going on in the world right now with COVID and with Black Lives Matters, with all the things that we are in a place that we need to have a great deal of resiliency to get through this chaotic mess that I believe that we're in. And so being open, Lisa, I don't see the slides that we're talking about, our tips. Is that?
I'm on it. All right, hang on.
I have some cues. She and I've worked on this, and I've really practiced. But and one of the tips that I had, that we were going to go through like 5 trips. So there's my hoop house in that. So the first is, don't get stuck in this is the way it's always been. I just have really tried to resist that all my life. It's like I just because if this the way it's always been done, you know, you're not going to go anywhere. You're not going to grow. And this photograph is Sarah Carlson with the Practical Farmers of Iowa, who I say is the queen of cover crops. And she's just the most incredible woman who has really gotten Iowa on the road to cover crops. And so we've had meetings with women talking about, as landowners, what they can look for, what it looks like. Sarah's there kneeling on the ground with, you know, looking at what it looks like for rye to come through the rubble from the stubble from the fall crops. So it doesn't have to be done always the way it's been done, and there's always new and inventive ways to look at things. And we could have the next slide, Lisa. Here we go. This is so interesting to do this stuff. And if I had, oh, well, I have it written on a piece of paper here. It says that be open to new ideas, which goes along with number 1, in that here's a picture. We're going to show a picture of me when I was completely in my attire for as an ag advisor in Afghanistan. I did this now 10 years ago. I can't believe it's that long ago. But I wanted to do something that was before I couldn't do things anymore. And I hope that never happens, but we just don't ever know. I had intended, this was right after, I went after after Obama was elected, and I had all expectations of probably getting a job in Washington, D.C. Went there, pounded the pavement, went all through the USDA looking for a job, because a lot of the programs that were being initiated were programs that I'd helped work on through policy work that I've done over the years. And lo and behold, I didn't get a job, and I was perplexed. But so I went to look for something else, and I went to a website called Jobs USA, and there it said ag advisor in Afghanistan or Iraq, and I looked at it and thought, nah. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, and I looked through the list of what, skills and things, and I definitely had all the skills. So I went through and applied and got to be gone from my home for a year. And again, I could do that because I am a privileged white woman who had a spouse that supported me through everything. Not everybody has had the same circumstances and same opportunities that I've had. And I just am so grateful that I've been able to live my life, fully with someone in support. And the other people who have always been supported have been, and they're all passed now, but my father and my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, we had a great deal of support. So, be open to new ideas and think of different ways outside the box. And this was the thing, when I first looked at that list of what it takes to be an ag advisor in Afghanistan, I thought, oh, well, and then I got to thinking at that time in my life, well, I've been a farmer for this long. I've been I've been a leader of women. I've done all these things. So golly, I may not have gone to the university for these things, but I have, my experiential learning and my learning on the job ability to do that. So, and then the next slide has to do with a good friend of mine, and and some of you will recognize her, but Laura Krause in Mount Vernon, Iowa. She's the one on the my right side of the screen, your left side of the screen, or is that? But anyway, she always brings students out to her farm and shows different things that she's done, because she's always done things differently. Laura is a 60-plus-year-old female farmer, farming full-time, and by herself. She has no spouse or partner. And Laura has been someone who I have just admired over and over and over again. And I was with her on Friday of last week after the storm blew through and took away two of her two hoop houses. One was completely turned over and the other was bent out of shape. And she had just lost her father in July and had his house to deal with. It's in Cedar Rapids, and by now many of you have probably heard what's happened in Cedar Rapids. It was a secret for a few days. It seemed like nobody knew what was going on, but we were hit by what people are calling a land hurricane, because it's easier to understand than derecho, which is straight winds. And anyway, Laura has been always good to have groups of people out to her farm showing her conservation measures. The one thing she always used to like to say, that all her neighbors go by, all the male neighbors, and kind of rubberneck at her place, because she's the one that unplugs tiles and makes wetlands, and she does things opposite about what everybody else does. And she's been a brave soul to do that on her own. And part of it is she's had friends that she's shared with She was one of the first people who helped start Women Food and Agriculture Network. And so in the late 90s, when we started that organization, it was to link and amplify women's voices. And, you know, she has, we all feel independent, you know, at times, and oh, I don't need help, and I don't need this, or I do. And so Friday, when I went out to her place, I had talked to her on the phone, and when I went out to her farm on Friday, I drove up with gallons of gasoline and water and tools. I brought my chainsaw, I brought my weed whacker, and she had just walked out of her house, and the look on her face was just like, ah, and then we both started crying, of course. But and that's the support of women. That's what we do to help each other. And I've always, she's 3 hours away from me, so I've always felt very isolated out here in Western Iowa, that it's a rather conservative bent, and Larry and I have been pretty self-contained, so we haven't needed a lot of you know, support outside of what we're doing, because we've had each other. But there are people that haven't had the same opportunities. I've also the other part of the youth that I like is that I've mentored a lot of young women on the farm. And actually we started in 1992, 91 with a male, a really great person who got in touch with us, and he was our first intern, and we've had several males since then, but basically we've concentrated on with females, and through Women Food and Agriculture Network, which has had a program when there's soft money available. We've been able to have stipends for both the farmer and the intern on the farms, and that. So it hasn't always been consistent, but I'll tell you, I've just learned so much from people. And not all of the women who have been through the farm have gone on to farming. Some are working in sustainable ag organizations, some are working within the health industry. They're helping to coordinate that, connect the dot with health and the way the soil, the earth is treated. And the ones that have started farms are always, I'm on Instagram with them. I love Instagram. Instagram is just like, wow, you know, it's got its good side and bad side. It's like when I see people who are doing things on Instagram, I think, oh no, I'm not that far. Oh dear, I got to really do a lot of stuff to catch up with where they are. And then I post things, and it's like, okay, I'm posting this little snippet, and that's probably what those people are doing. And so it's just like, and it's not a competition or anything, but it's very helpful to see how other people are doing their type of farming. There's a young man in Grinnell, Iowa, that his Jordan Scheibel is middle way farmer, and he and we have the same politics. So I always appreciate when I see him posting things that are political and connecting that to food and food systems and things. So I love Instagram for that reason, and I learn a lot of technology. I learn how to do Zoom, or I learn not to be afraid of technology. I think that's how I instead of sitting down and looking at something and saying, oh, I can't do this, I can start to take it apart, you know, and look and see how I can learn how to do this. So I think that's maybe that's the best way to describe it, is not to be afraid of doing, you know, taking on something that I think is out of my realm. And then the other tip that I have, the fourth tip, is to, you know, step in and contribute when there's a chance to contribute. So I was recently, 2 years ago, I was in Ghana. I went with an organization from Iowa called Self-Help International. And and Africa was one continent I hadn't been to yet. So I was really pleased when I was asked to come along and help evaluate some of their sustainable ag programs and their women and youth programs. And so these two women, we're sitting in on a sustainable ag research farm, and these two women are part of the farmers who associate with the sustainable ag farm. And it's really, it was, from the beginning of starting WFAN, and that it was like, I could never find information on women farmers in the United States. It was always in other countries. And if you look at the statistics, I think it's still relative that that women, 75% of the food in the world is raised by women. So it's one of those things that even though women do the farming, men have the face of agriculture. And I started years ago seeing this. There was a book in the 1980s that a rural sociologist from Penn State, her name is Carolyn Sachs. She wrote an article called The Invisible Farmer. She didn't write an article, she wrote a book, called The Invisible Farmer. And it was about how all of our, she documented how our aid agencies like USAID and that would go to countries, developing countries, and teach the men how to use the tractors and do all these things, and then go back years later and all those tractors are rusted because the men don't do the work, it's the women. So they were targeting the wrong group. And I must say, I'm trying to, I get distracted if I wish I could participate in the chat, because I see people putting things up and it's like, oh yeah, let's talk about that. So I'm going to ignore the chat box and I'm going to look at it later after we're done. Stephanie at Moses is making that possible to look back through that, because I want to see what all are doing. So step in and contribute. And,
Denise,
yes.
Could you talk a little bit more? I didn't give it justice in the introduction on how you started the Women Food and Ag Network, because when we're talking about stepping up and out of our box to contribute, that was never on your game plan, right? As far as starting a nonprofit. But when we see things that have needs and gaps, and that was a while ago, during the 80s farm crisis, but there's always a crisis. Pick your crisis. Could you share a little bit, like, what compelled you to do that?
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up on a farm. I married Larry. I married an organic farm. I met a man in a local bar. I had been living in northern Vermont. I just came back to Iowa, where I'm from, to go to my brother's wedding. And I met Larry, and he said, I want to be an organic farmer. And that we were married 6 months later. It was a short romance, and it sounded pretty political to me. I thought, wow. And not only is he good looking, but he's a very dear, gentle man, and I fell in love with him. So he taught me how to farm in the late 70s, early 80s, and through different vehicles of the farm crisis was emerging at that time. And so through things like the Democratic Party and our food buying club and different things that were going on, was a need to step into, and this is something that I had no plan on. You're right, Lisa, that the farm crisis was emerging in the early 80s, and that prompted me to step forward. Larry and I made this decision together, that I would become a farm activist, and he would stay home and milk the cows. We were milking cows then, and we had 3 children. And I would go on the road trying to organize around issues of fairness, parity, different words we're hearing again, supply management, all of these kind of things. So, and I felt after 2 years of farming that I could call myself a farmer, of learning how to farm. So I would go to meetings, and I would have people introduce me as a farmer, and after the meetings, women would come up to me and say, "Will you call yourself a farmer?" And I'd say, "Yes. This is what I do." And they'd say, "Oh, well, I'm a farmer's wife." And I'd say, "Well, what do you do? What's your day look like?" And it's like, well, if I milk, they milk or feed the pigs or do gather the eggs, raise meat chickens, drive the tractor, make hay, all of these things. And I'd say, well, that sounds like a farmer to me. And they'd say, "Oh, no, I'm a farmer's wife." And so that is what made me think. And during the farm crisis, the women did the books. The women kept track of the business of the farm, mostly, for the most part. And they were the ones that sounded the sirens on the farm crisis and they'd say to their husbands, "We can't do this anymore." And the husbands would just like put their head down and work harder and try to just, make it go away. And it just didn't do that. And so through the 80s and my struggles with being recognized as a farmer, the people, just because I said I was, didn't mean that the guys in town would look at me as one, because Larry's the farmer. He has the family's farm land and things. So I was determined that we did these, we looked all over, we being a group of women, looked for case studies of women farmers, actual farmers in the United States. And in the early 1990s, there was a study that was released by the Economic Research Service of the USDA that said women own 50% of the land in the United States and a little bit higher in the Midwest. And it's like, wow. And I would think about that a lot. And when I drive on the roads around, I think, wow, if women made the decisions about the land, it would look so much different. And so during the 80s, after having struggled to become actually a leader in the farm movement in various organizations, from the Iowa Farm Unity Coalition to the National Family Farm Coalition, a lot of doors were not open to me. And in fact, they, were shut. And it's like the men in the back room were making the decisions. And so that prompted me after, after the conference in Beijing, which was a United Nations conference, when we were working on women in agriculture, prompted me to come back, and I met up with some great women at Iowa State. Betty Wells, who's a real sociologist, and Rhonda Yoder, and Shelley Gradwell, and they were studying women farmers, and I had this experience, and so that's kind of how Women, Food, and Agriculture started. And our first mission statement was about linking and amplifying women's voices. And then we started studying the women landowners, and that's what's really taken off. Excuse me, I've got an itch in my eye. That has really taken off because women do own land, but don't make decisions about the land. That's slowly changing, but the men who farm the land are a lot of times tenants. And many times they're relatives or close, and could be close relatives or close neighbors. And women don't want to impose on, the decision making, but the women want natural resources and families on the land, and the men have to farm the farm bill, which is quantity, not quality. You got to just use up this natural resource we have and just suck all the energy out of the land, and they're a victim of a system that we don't have any control over. We sort of do every 5 years when we rewrite a farm bill, but corporate interests are so strong that they're the ones that are determining the farm bill. So that's kind of the beginning of that, and I'm going to sort of kind of bring it to a place where there's another slide that says,
Denise, I just want to jump in for a second. When we started talking on this one about your work in Africa, I just want to put it
Yes.
in the chat. It's interesting to talk about it now in the world of COVID,
Oh,
but for all of
yeah.
us, down the road, and I know it was on mine, if anybody has done some work internationally, there's a variety of programs. I just posted on the Farmer to Farmer exchange that I know a
Oh,
lot of women have
yes.
done. Those are more short-term exchanges, a couple weeks,
Yeah.
where your travel expenses are covered. There's a lot of work in Africa and India, of sharing your skills in a short-term situation. I don't know, I don't know if I should laugh or cry. It was one of these things like I had on my radar, but it's going to be a couple years now, Lisa, given our current situation, which to your point, Denise, you got to do things when you can. But
Yes.
are there's other things people can share, other programs or experiences that we can keep on our radar? Please do. But yeah, great.
Yeah.
Or other things you're aware of, because the one you went with, Denise, was Iowa specific, right?
Yeah, Tigana, yes. Self-Help International, yes. So, yeah, in my time in Afghanistan, I was a USDA employee. So, yeah, those, and so, not everybody wishes to do that. That was me. My sign is Sagittarian, and that is a part of travel and experience and everything. So it's one of those, in fact, when I moved back to Iowa and married Larry, it was like, oh dear, I hope I'm not stuck here. But it's really not stuck in the sense, but my travel meant a lot to me over the years. And funny thing is that I could remain involved and do these things and still travel. And people would always laugh about it. How can someone from a farm in Iowa be, on this international scene? And food is international. Food is everybody. It affects everybody and everywhere. And so it's been interesting in doing that. And I've been able to take advantage of doing those kind of things that are available. And sometimes you blink and that opportunity's gone. So if there's any way to take advantage of things, I always encourage that to happen. So in the last slide is take care of yourself. Burnout serves no purpose. And I was thinking about this when I was weeding this morning. I was thinking, literally Mother Earth right now at our farm is burned out. It's just, I walk outside and I've chosen not to water a lot of things that are starting to really look very poor. Mostly my flowers, and I love flowers. And my hardy hibiscus is blooming. It was blooming last week and it was gorgeous, and it just looks so sad. But we can't we have our own well, so it's not as if we couldn't water, but the time consumption of doing that. I water in my high tunnel, and I water the crops that we're going to be eating and that. But anyway, the resilience I was saying earlier in talking about how I kind of take my cue from Mother Earth. And one of the reasons I can continue to go is because when I go out in the world and do things like organizing or activism, or go to Washington or go to a protest someplace, which I'm not doing as often now and think I should be, but I come back here, and this is where I once again re-energize myself. I love to go barefoot. My feet are on the ground, and I'm picking up the energy from the earth. And even, and I'm talking about this in retrospect of things. I had 3 children. We milked 50 cows. We went through the farm crisis. It was we were on food stamps. There were just a lot of things that went on that were I just remember crying in the barn on Christmas Eve when we were having a blizzard. Those are the things you sort of don't remember so well, and probably is a good thing. But I have been burned out, so I can speak now in a retrospective manner, and say that here I am. I'm still active. I'm healthy, and I can take advantage of things that that aren't so readily available to other people. So I'm very grateful for that. And so this morning, or every morning, I do stretching, I do yoga, and I've done this for over 30 years, even more, I think. And if I don't do it, I don't walk, or I do walk. I don't move throughout the day with as much ease as I do when I've stretched my body to do the things I need to do. And I read at night about 5 minutes before I fall asleep. I never have enough time. I have to renew my books at the library several times so I can get through them. And I just read books that are pretty much novels that are no-brainers. I read the news all the time. I'm a news junkie. I listen and I read, and so I escape that way. And I think escaping is a good way. And then the other thing I was thinking about as well is that I breathe in the beauty of this farm and of Mother Nature. The other day, the butterflies have been so thick around here, and I run around with my camera, with my phone, my cell phone, taking pictures of monarchs on zinnias or swallowtails or praying mantises, and I just drink in the beauty of the textures and the colors and just breathe deeply. That's what makes me function, I think. And I bet there are many of you that have those same type of things. But taking care of yourself is really, really important. And now that I'm a grandma and we have 8 grandchildren, and I had 2 granddaughters, Larry and I had 2 granddaughters out the other night. They stayed overnight, and we have a screened-in porch, and they slept out on the screened-in porch. And it's just, they're 10-year-olds, those 2 are. And they rescued a kitty that wasn't really needing rescue, but they really felt like it was. So those are the things I'm joyful about. And of just, drinking in the beauty of what is around me, even when, and it's hard. I'm beginning to not like July more and more because it's hot. The weeds grow like overnight 10 times what they were the day before. And the drone of the spray planes there's a lot of, all of you that are in rural areas know that July is really heavy with spray planes putting on pesticides and putting on chemicals that might not be so healthy to our bodies. So I just think, again, you all are sharing in the chat box, and I have to look away and not look at it because that's really difficult. But I don't know, Lisa, are there some things you've seen that you could share that people have put in?
Yeah, there's a bunch here. Thanks. I think there's a lot of I threw out even like home yoga practices, mindfulness practice. Thanks, Fiona. Jane's got a whole Strong Bodies weightlifting class. It's interesting. Maybe as a topic, I'm concerned now, as we are clearly moving into winter under COVID, of what are some things people are thinking about doing to, in some cases, literally shake it up. I know for a lot of us, myself included, that was always a time to get off the farm, to perhaps go to warmer climates or other things to explore. And that's just not happening this year. So on this home workout note, that's something I've been thinking about, of just some practicalities of things to move into the farmhouse, an exercise bike, things I'm not going to the Y, things I wouldn't have thought of. Folks, please share. I wanted to ask you too, Denise, the photo here when you were running for Congress, and you've run for Secretary of Ag, which is an elected position in Iowa, et cetera. Those are extreme, well, like farming, but in a different realm of extremely intensive experiences, but they're also in a certain time frame, right? It's over on election day. And are there ways you've learned to deal with those ups and downs where how do you identify when, hey, I really need to watch myself, this is just too much? Or are there
Yeah.
things too, as all of us head into fall and eventually things are going to frost and cool down, are there rituals, and everybody please share in the chat too, that you go through when the harvest is in to just regroup a little bit?
Yeah, and in the past, we have children that live in Colorado, and so we, when the harvest is over, we head out there for a couple weeks or whatever, and but it's funny because Larry and I both really love where we are and what we do, and so when it seems like work, it really isn't work, if that makes sense. But running for office, say the last time I ran for office was for state representative, and it was one of those decisions I made because nobody else was running, and this guy should not have run unopposed. And so and that was like in 2006 I ran for Secretary of Agriculture, which was it was Iowa State. It was the whole state that I had to cover. And this was just several counties for a House seat. And we live in a democracy, so I feel very passionate, very strongly that people, especially white males that go unopposed, they don't. My experience has been they don't listen to me very well, and I just think that there needs to be someone else, in there to help. And in Iowa this year, there are just numbers of young women that are running for office that is just wonderful. And one person I look at who's running, and it seems like she's been running forever, is Chris, again, and from Wisconsin. Chris, tell me her last name. She's your good friend, but I've forgotten her last name. Chris Marion, yes, of course. I watch her on Instagram, and she's an amazing woman. But the thing I was thinking about with my running for office, in that I'm a very social person. I really like being with people, and I get an energy. I get a high from being. I get a people high, I call it, and with being in groups and being around people. So I get a lot of energy, and it's mostly positive energy. There's very little negative energy that I get when I'm around people. And yet I really like coming back here and being by myself and listening. I listening to the birds, or this morning, the interstate is 2 miles north of us, and it was really loud. It's a north wind. So there was a lot of, I hear a lot of Harleys going home from Sturgis, but I just think that we're all individuals. So all of these things that you're sharing in that come from what part of our life are we in, what kind of involvement do we have, what are our passions. And I never thought when I was little, that I would be a farmer. It never even occurred to me. And now I've been a farmer for 45 years, and I always loved nature. And this is one of the best places to be. As far as I can see, I'm outside 12, 14 hours a day, all during the summer. And I like the winter because I can hibernate. So that might be the thing, Lisa, is the hibernation of the winter that revitalizes me too. Although it seems like over the last decade that we've filled those downtimes with going to conferences. And of course, that'll all change because so many things are going to be virtual. So it's like, oh, where did winter go? I feel like that. And yet that is the time when we can meet in person and be, and have fellowship together. And that's certainly going to change this year. So it's just, we're all going to have to find ways of coping as this continues, and looking for solutions. Maybe those of you that are in, on this Zoom today, maybe you're scientists and you're doing research that would really help change the world or change it even a little bit. But I think that it's really important and to find your passion. You know, they say that a lot, but it's like, I think it's very true.
Excellent. All right, well, folks, have any other questions for Denise, please pop them into the chat. And also, I hope everybody here is already part of our Moses in Her Boots Facebook group. We've been carrying on these conversations under the Resilience Bootcamp there, and we will do that, and as well as post the video of this. So yeah, the Resilience Bootcamp has been covering different themes exactly like this, from mindfulness to ergonomics to the one last week is all about, in the same spirit of today, of pivoting. And Molly Rockman shares her experiences on taking a sabbatical off the farm for a year. So what we're really talking about, as Denise has been talking about it, is shaking things up and how can we do that. So so let me check and just check our chat here.
I like the cleaning the garlic. Should be doing that. Getting it. Oh yes, I do that too when we're on Zoom. You know, it seems like we always have to be, you know, doing something in order to focus. I mean, it's just sit and be still. I don't know, but there, you know. I think I just saw a question flash about where there's internships and things, and I think given the changes in things and that in Instagram accounts remind me that given what's going on, we've had money from for Women Food and Agriculture internships called Harvesting Our Potential. So that's one to look into, and it's especially matching women to women. So there would be, but they're all over the country, and I don't know the state of what they are in with COVID. So it's something to explore. My Instagram accounts that I like are in Iowa. I just go there and have them in there, but the Over the Moon is a new farm with two farmers that actually are going to get married in September. I think their wedding is still on, I think. But anyway, they started a flower farm this year, and they're delightful. It's called Over the Moon. And Local Harvest and Sundog Farm are a couple of women over by in Solon, Iowa. And these have been friends. I mean, there's just so many. Middle Way Farmer is Jordan Scheibel, who I really admire how he's working as he upscales. He's upscaling. One of the things about Jordan is that I'm downscaling, so I'm downsizing, and he's upscaling. So it's interesting to see how he does that. I am. Let's see, ours is Rolling Acres. What is ours? Rolling Acres 76, Rolling Acres 76, I think is our Instagram. One farm is in Western Iowa, a woman farmer, Danelle Meyer, and Forktail Farm is actually, Forktail Farm is Amber Moore, who was my intern for a while, and then we became business partners. And for 7 years before I stopped doing CSAs this year. So Jupiter Ridge is another one in Eastern Iowa. And I don't know that I'm on any with outside of, I'm trying to think of Minnesota and Wisconsin, and I don't know. I know there's plenty. Chris Marion is the one I'm on with, the Wisconsin woman I'm on, and she's got her bed and breakfast. But maybe we could share that. Yeah, from other people, the ones that you guys watch. But it's always, I love it because it's just pictures, you know, mostly, and maybe one comment. It doesn't take a lot of stuff to be on Instagram, I think. So, yeah. Yep.
Yep, great. Yeah, please feel free to put any farms you like to follow in the chat. That will be actually a lovely thing to keep going through the winter, and I can pop those into the Facebook group as well. Awesome. Well, I want to give a shout out to, well, I'll send this in a recap to everybody, but we're always looking for ideas on future webinars, topics, things that are working. So we've got a survey. You can fill it out right now if you like, or I'll send you the link separately too. And we have some very exciting Moses Schwag prize draws for just filling it out. So you'll see there's a place to add your initials as well as your town and state, and that way we can find you when you win and get that to you. And yeah, please, Rachel, thanks. Share your own Instagram accounts too. And
Yes.
Onward we go through the rest of the peak of the summer. Thank you so much, Denise, for your time and for sharing here, and for everybody for sharing in the chat. And we will, again, continue this conversation online. You guys have my contact info. If I can be of any help in connecting some of these resources, just let me know. Terrific. Thanks, everybody.
Well, yeah, thank you, Lisa. Thanks for doing this and putting this together and teaching me some new technology to working.
We are in this together. All right. Have a good day, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.